This podcast is sponsored by nobody.
Hey dudes, this is Bonnie Hayes. I sang Girls Like Me on the original Valley Girl soundtrack. You're listening to Tommy Throwback Kovac on Splat from the Past. He fucking rocks.
Hey dudes, welcome to Splat from the Past, the only 80s themed horror sci-fi show where things can get totally radical. Now today, I will be welcoming Deena Shoshkes. I hope I'm pronouncing her last name right. She is the lead singer of the Cucumbers. In 1983, they had an MTV hit with the song My Boyfriend, which also became part of a trivia game in HBO's Brain Games, which I used to watch before school when I was a kid, like in elementary school. And we're going to talk about that today and talk about, the New Jersey, power pop / new wave scene of the early 80s. Her and her husband, John Freed, they started out as a folk and jazz duo back when they were in college, and then just morphed into the Cucumbers, and they've done a lot of great songs. They even did a cover of All Shook Up from Elvis Presley and had a cool video of it as well. And she had another band called the Campfire Flies, and they still do acoustic shows from what I've seen on YouTube. And it's going to be a great conversation today. I love talking to the forgotten new wave people of the 80s because, I'm such a nerd. I remember this stuff more than most people do. And it's day 5 since Paul Reubens died, and now I'm starting to calm down a little bit. It's starting to get less sad, but it's still sad every time I see Pee Wee because he was, around forever. It's just devastating, but I'm feeling better now. And once again, rest in peace, Paul Reubens. So yeah, here is my interview with Deena Shoshkes. Hey, Deena, welcome to the show. How are you today?
I'm fine. How are you?
I am just spectacular. This is such a great honor. Thank you so much for taking the time today.
Oh, well, I'm honored that you're even interested in me.
I get that a lot. So, going back in time, what age did you start gravitating toward music?
Me? Oh, in the crib. My mother says I rocked the crib and sang and banged my head against the wall.
Oh, that was the early inclination. Were there any musicians in your family?
Well, let's see. No professional musicians. My father played violin, and both my parents loved music, so there was always music playing in the house.
Right.
And I'm the youngest of 4 girls, and all my older sisters had piano lessons, and I wanted to do everything they did. I couldn't wait to be like them, so I couldn't wait for piano lessons.
So was piano your first instrument then?
Yes. My mother made me wait till I was 9 years old to start taking lessons. But I used to bang on the piano and make up my own songs before then.
Yeah, you started writing songs early?
Well, I don't know if I sang. I just sort of played music and made noise. And then I started writing little pieces for the piano.
Right.
When I was 12, 13 years old.
Nice. How long was it before you started playing guitar?
Around the same time, I taught myself a little bit of guitar. I think when I was a teenager, my older sister had a boyfriend who played and showed me a couple of chords and a little finger picking. Mm-hmm. And there was also a TV show on public television, mm-hmm. and you could send away for a book and follow along and learn. I think it was classical guitar, and so I did that. That was before YouTube and all that. But I didn't really consider myself a guitar player. But I really started writing songs and playing guitar when I was in college, and I met John Freed, who's my partner in the Cucumbers and now my husband.
Yep.
And when we first moved in together, he had always played guitar for years and years, and had like a duo with a friend that he grew up with. And that friend came to visit us, and I didn't want to be left out. They were jamming, so I picked up a guitar, and I figured, I know enough to play along. And we just jammed and jammed for hours and hours, and made up a few songs. And that night, like, we'd been invited to a party, and we brought our instruments, and we had our first gig.
Wow. Do you remember the first album you ever bought with your own money?
The first album, I remember buying a single for my sister. I brought her like a Beatles single. Mm-hmm. But for myself, I don't remember, because since I had 3 older sisters and they were always bringing music in, that was plenty for me.
Yeah.
I guess when they went off to college and I was on my own, I started buying my own music. It was probably like Joni Mitchell.
Oh, nice. Yeah. How about the first concert?
The first concert I went to, you mean a rock concert?
Mm-hmm.
Well, this is a great story. My dad had a cousin who was a music promoter, mm-hmm. and he occasionally promoted shows in Asbury Park, New Jersey, at the famous convention hall. Mm-hmm. And my grandparents lived in Asbury Park. And I remember when we would go visit them, sometimes this cousin of my dad's would say, do you want to go to the concert, if there was a concert going? So the first one I went to was Janis Joplin. Mm-hmm. And I was really, really young. I had no idea what I was seeing, and I was sitting in the balcony with my older sisters, and all I remember is the crowd shouting, "Peace in my heart, peace in my heart." And then she finally sang that song. But yeah, that's like the first rock concert that I remember. But intentionally, I think in our local ice skating arena, there was a concert with Richie Havens and Livingston Taylor. I don't know how they put that together, but that was nearby. And so we went.
Wow. So it sounds like you were heavily influenced by folk music, because you and John began playing acoustic folk and occasionally jazz stuff, right?
Yeah, well, I was definitely like totally into, as I said, Joni Mitchell, and he was totally into James Taylor, that singer-songwriter sound. And then, but it was when we saw the Talking Heads and Elvis Costello,
yeah,
that we were like, oh, wait a minute, we want to play electric guitars and write songs.
Yeah, because by that time, the folk craze of the '60s had died down, but then there was this weird coffee house, like alternative style of folk that was emerging. Like Lone and Navarro in L.A. were playing that. I interviewed Dan Navarro, and REM, of course, they used folk elements as well, because the Byrds was a huge influence on them. Yeah, I mean, it was around.
The Byrds was one of my first concerts too. That I was a teenager, and I was doing some sort of like summer enrichment program in Massachusetts, and the Byrds were playing maybe like in Tanglewood. I can't remember exactly, but there was like an outing from this place, and we went to see the Byrds. That was really my first real rock, quote unquote rock show, and loved it.
Was David Crosby still in the band?
I have no idea. At that time, I didn't know who was in the band. It was just like being there. That was so exciting.
Yeah, because after he left, they went from being a folk band to a country rock band. They were like one of the first bands out in LA to emerge with the country rock sound, along with Buffalo Springfield.
Yeah, I loved all that stuff. And I have a vivid memory of them playing 8 Miles High that day.
Yeah, that's such a great song. So, when did you guys shift from the folk rock stuff to the kind of new wavy power pop sound?
It's sort of evolved. When we first started playing together, before we started writing songs, and in like a little coffee house, like you're saying, at where we went to college, and we played all kinds of songs. Some were Beatles songs, some jazz songs, some I can't even remember all the songs we played. But then we, after we saw, as I mentioned, we saw the Talking Heads, and that really opened our eyes and got swept up in that whole new wave movement of the early 80s. John and I had worked for a year and saved up some money, and then we traveled in Europe, and we took our guitars with us, and we played on the street, and we started writing songs then. We started writing songs that day. I told you when the friend came over and we were jamming, that was when we wrote our first song, Boyfriend. And while we were living together, we were in Boston. This was 1980.
Mm-hmm.
We started writing a few songs that we got the bug. And so then we took our guitars with us to Europe, and we would play on the street. We'd play a mix of cover songs and our songs, and we kept writing new songs. So gradually it became more and more our own original songs. And when we came back in 1981, we moved to Hoboken, and we bought electric guitars and started a band.
Wow. Yeah. Did the B-52s influence you guys in any way?
We love the B-52s. Absolutely. We didn't get to see them up close in those years, those formative years, but we loved their records.
Yeah, because I hear a little bit of an influence with the harmony backup vocals and the kind of surf rocky guitar that you guys can do on occasion. That's rooted in punk. Yeah, I think they're just fantastic. I think they should be in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame.
They're the greatest, and I just love their lighthearted and danceable style. I just love that.
Yeah, that's so awesome. Where did the name The Cucumbers come from?
Well, John in college used to get together with some friends, and they would put on Ziggy Stardust and dance around and play air guitar and drums and stuff.
Yeah.
And one day he said to his friends, why are we doing this? We could write, I play guitar, and let's write our own songs. And so they started writing songs together, and there were 3 of them. One of them would call out titles, and the other one would just make up words and a melody while John played guitar. And one of their songs, they called themselves the Wayland Wailers because they lived in a building called Wayland. And one of the songs was the Cucumbers, and it was called Cucumbers. Yeah. And when John and I first started playing, this patched together set, we would play this song because I thought it was really funny. It went, does anybody know where all the cucumbers have gone? Has anybody seen a cucumber farm? And it just went on and on. And so when we played an early show at Maxwell's in Hoboken, we didn't have a name for our band, but we played this song, Cucumbers. And Steve No, it wasn't Steve Fallon. It was one of our friends came up to whose opinion we really respected and admired. Came up to us after the show, and he said, "You guys are great, but do yourselves a favor: never play that song "Cucumbers" ever again."
Yeah.
And so we never did play the song again, but we took the name.
Oh my God, that is hilarious. Yeah, because when I think of cucumbers, I think of that classic scene in Animal House at the grocery store. You know, that's the first thing that comes to my mind.
Okay, you got to refresh my memory. I don't remember that.
Tim Matheson goes up to Verna Bloom as she's looking at the cucumbers, and he says, "Mine's bigger than that." And she's like,
Oh.
"What?" And he's like, "Oh, my cucumber, it's bigger." You know, cucumbers are very sensuous, don't you think? No, people are sensuous. Cucumbers are sensual. Yeah.
That's pretty funny.
Yeah. So when you guys were playing, you know, the clubs and everything, like, who were the other bands that were around?
Oh boy, we were so lucky. We were in the middle of an amazing scene. We had this home base in Hoboken in the 80s, and there was like a little scene in Hoboken with the bongos and Yola Tango, and in New York we were playing in CBGB's, and yeah, and
Yeah.
there's a greater scene in Asbury Park in Trenton, New Jersey, too, a famous club called City Garden. So there were a lot of wonderful local bands, and then at all the clubs we played at, there were like the touring bands of the time too. So like at Maxwell's, REM came through, the Replacements came through, at CBGB's we opened for the Tom Tom Club.
Oh.
And we went on, when we were on tour, we played with the Breeders, and we played, not with what's the band before the Breeders? Now I'm blanking on the name.
That's cool, though. You got to open for the Tom Tom Club because that's, you know, one half of Talking Heads.
Right. And we played a lot with They Might Be Giants. They were pals of ours.
Wow.
And we opened up for the Replacements.
Well, let's see. I mean, with the Breeders, I mean, there was somebody in the band who was in the Pixies. There was someone in.
Yeah, that's what I mean. That's what I meant. I forgot. It was the Pixies. Yeah, we played on a bill with the Pixies in Boston.
Boston?
Mm-hmm.
You mean More Than a Feeling, Boston?
No. We played with the Pixies actually in Cambridge, Mass, in the Boston area. At,
Gotcha.
I think it was TT the Bears.
Wow. So when you guys were playing CBGB, did you see like the Flesh Tones or Television?
Oh yeah, definitely.
Yeah, Peter.
And the Flesh Tones played at Maxwell's a lot.
Yes, Peter Zaremba, I interviewed him a few years ago, and he has some good stories about that. Did you see the Smithereens around?
Oh yeah, definitely. We played with the Smithereens a lot too. I think we played with them one New Year's Eve at City Gardens in Trenton, New Jersey. Our paths ran across them a lot. And I remember when I first met Pat Denizio, he had 2 songs on cassette that he kept playing for us. One was Blood and Roses, and the other was Behind the Wall of Sleep. And he would play that cassette to anybody he met. Listen to this.
Wow. That's amazing. Yeah, I love the Smithereens. I think they're great too. Did you ever see D.L. Byron?
No.
He wrote the Pat Benatar song "Shadows of the Night." Yeah, I interviewed him a couple of years ago, and I just found out like last week he passed away or something.
Oh.
Yeah, he came up in the New York alternative scene with people like Willie Nile and stuff. Yeah.
Oh yeah, I've played with Willie Nile, but not until like recent years, not way back when.
Yeah. So how do you guys get the attention of Fake Doom Records?
Oh, well, let's see. We put an ad in the Village Voice for a bass player, and we found Nels Johnson, who was our bass player on our first EP. And Nels had been in another band called the Delphobics with Steve Nyhoff. And Nels and Steve started Fake Doom Records to put out the Delphobics. And so they decided to branch out and put out more bands. So they put out our album, and they put out the Wyos, and Steve joined another band called the Gyros, which was a rockabilly band. So they had the Gyros, and then they also signed Life in a Blender, who we still play with today. They're still active, and we love them.
Nice. So yeah, I mean, My Boyfriend is such a great song. What's the genesis behind it?
Okay, well, I told you about that first jam session.
Yeah.
The very first gig. Well, we made up that riff that circulates through My Boyfriend. John had recorded the jam session, and he listened to was probably like a 90-minute cassette tape, and found the 2 bars of music that were worthwhile, and he found some lyrics. I can't really even say they were lyrics. In those days, we had typewriters, and I had a typewriter on my desk, and I would just type things like journalistic style writing, and like journaling, self-journaling, not like magazine writing. And I had these sheets of paper lying around, and one of them was My Boyfriend Won't Wash the Dishes or the sink or the floor or make the bed, and all those words. And he picked that up, and he just sang it on top of the chords, and then he showed me what I had played. Rather, like he taught me what I had played. These sort of fleeting musical thoughts that you go through in a jam session.
Yeah.
And so we constructed the song around that.
Nice.
And so that was our very first song.
Yeah, I mean, it was an interesting time too, because there were female bands like the Go-Go's and the Bengals emerging, but like there was also male bands with female lead singers, and they were doing songs that had a sense of feminism and also a sense of humor, whether it was Patty Donahue and the Waitresses or the Little Girls with the Meso Sisters. I just interviewed one, by the way. And you guys were definitely in that category too with My Boyfriend. It brought a lot of humor and feminism, coexistently.
Thank you. It was fun.
Yeah, I mean, was it on a subconscious level that's what it was?
I was just being myself. I wasn't trying to be feminist. I was just being myself, and it just came out that way. But yes, and then because we only had one verse, then John, we just sang it twice, and John sang it the second time, and then the third time we sang it together. And people loved that too. But then when we got signed to Profile Records, they asked us to re-record the song and write a second verse. So that changed.
Right. Yeah. So how did the song wind up being a part of HBO's Brain Games?
Let's see. At the time, we're getting a lot of attention right away, and getting lots of fun gigs. And I remember we may have been playing at it was a really wonderful venue in New York, Irving Plaza, and there was a lot of vibe about it. And then the people who were making who were the animators and making Brain Games, were there in the audience, and they came up to us after the show and they asked us if they could use the song. So they were out like scouting around, and we had a little bit of a buzz, and it was just part of the fun of being in New York, because whenever you go out, you meet somebody, and so many people are doing so many interesting, fun, creative things.
Yeah, I mean, this is pre Chris Albrecht HBO. This is when it was still a small, pay cable company. They'd been around about 10 years by that point, and it was pretty groundbreaking. I was 6 when I was watching Brain Games, and before school, like when they would show cartoons early in the morning. Yeah, and I always remembered that song because of that game. And I'll tell you, I own 2 of the Best of Brain games on VHS. I'm a VHS collector, and my brother, who's 9 years older than me, he was like 8 or 9 when Brain Games started. He remembers it. He saw my 2 tapes recently on my shelf, and he was like, "How come you didn't tell me you had the Best of Brain Games?"
Oh, well, that's so wonderful. That's really cool. We had really so much fun with them, because what they did was they brought us to a studio, and they just took a zillion photos of us playing the song. And then they printed those photos out like color Xeroxes or something, and drew on top of them and animated them. And I didn't have hair like that.
Yeah, your hair was blonde, but they did a good job of doing your face, though.
Yeah. And it was really cute. It was like, how many guitar players are there in the Cucumbers? And then they made another cut for us that was just something that we could use as a music video that wasn't for the show.
Yeah, the music video is hilarious. What do you remember about making it?
Which one are you talking about? The Brain Games one?
No, the music video. Where you put the fish in the salted bathtub.
Oh, the cake and the
Yeah.
That's when we were signed to Profile Records, and they. Oh wow! John Linnell from They Might Be Giants was supposed to be the boyfriend in the video, but he had conflicts, which was too bad. That would have been much more fun. They just got an actor. It was okay. I wasn't thrilled with it. That video, probably the budget for the video was the same as the budget for the recording budget for our album. Those were like the video days. And so they put like so much makeup on us and everything. And I remember after we made that video, the same day we shot the video, we were supposed to go perform at a benefit in Hoboken, and so we went straight from the video shoot to the performance, and everybody was like, "Why are you wearing all this makeup?" Because they really put a lot on us. But yeah, it was fun, and we were very grateful for the attention that it got us on MTV and stuff.
Oh yeah, I think it's hilarious. I have a very dark and morbid sense of humor, so when I see it, I just laugh out loud. You got the hangman rope over his bed and stuff. I like Susie's Getting Married. The bass line is so punk rock on that. What's the genesis behind that song?
That is another song that came from our earliest songwriting days, and John said, basically, it's like, let's write a song. And he started playing those chords, and he handed me this piece of paper that I had tossed in the trash. It's literally like an envelope that I had written those words down on. And a part of the lyrics to the song are, I can sit in a restaurant and drink a pot of tea.
Mm-hmm.
I had written that in a Chinese restaurant. I was like, taking myself out to lunch and wrote that on the envelope. But it's about my childhood friend, Susie, my best friend. And we did all those things, played Barbies and jumped on the bed and stuff. And I found out that she was getting married. And so I wrote those words. And so I didn't think of it as a song, but John started playing those chords and he said, here, and I just started singing, and then it happened. And then Nels, who I told you about, the Fake Doom Records connection, he made up that bass line.
Wow. Go ahead and do it. I like that song. You sound like Deborah Harry on it.
Oh, thank you. That song started, that was like a really slow, moody song.
Yeah.
And then when we sped it up a lot when it came time to record it.
Yeah, I like it a lot. And Snap Out of It, that's John's song, isn't it?
Yes. Uh-huh.
Yeah. You guys, have a couple lighthearted songs, and then you go a little bit dark on that EP.
Well, yeah, we'll go ahead and do it sort of dark. Right. Well, it's that time of life where you're sort of floundering around. What are you going to do with yourself? That's what that song was about.
Is Who Betrays Me an autobiographical song?
Yeah. I think it's like about feeling inadequate, like just thinking that, if you really knew what I was like, you'd be disappointed.
Yeah, because I listen to it and I go, wow, someone must have had a really bad breakup,
Oh. Yeah, well, I think it's more about like just feeling inadequate.
Don't Watch TV, is that an anti-violence on TV song?
I think it was more about like how TV is just taking over, and that's at the time when cable TV was really proliferating, and there's just like so many channels and so many shows, and it's like, get away from the TV screen and shut it off.
Yeah. I love that cover of All Shook Up. It doesn't sound anything like Elvis. It sounds very Cucumbers-like, and it's awesome. Was that a song that you guys would do in your early club days?
Oh, definitely. It was very popular, and I got to give credit to Nels again, because we were trying to decide what song, we wanted to do a cover song, and we loved that song, and he said, let's do it sort of like the Cramps. And it may not sound anything like the Cramps, but that was what we had in mind when we started that, and it was always so much fun to play that.
I kind of get what you mean by that. Yeah, I love the Cramps. They used to do Halloween shows in the Bay Area every year when I was a kid, and I sadly never got to go to one, but I always wanted to because they were just fantastic, I thought.
Yeah, they're great.
That video for All Shook Up is fun too. Any memories of that?
Oh yeah, we loved that video. Well, first of all, the filmmaker, Illy Waymer, was just this really, really cool guy. And I have a little anecdote about him.
Okay.
He made a film called Kiss Daddy Goodnight. And it was Uma Thurman's first feature film. And they shot a scene in our home in Hoboken. And for some reason, she hated that film, and she never talks about it. Like, you'll never find anything about it out there. But I just remember that was really fun at the time, and then we watched her shoot up to stardom. And we went to the opening of that film. It was in some like old theater in the East Village in New York, and it had been like a vaudeville theater, and the seats were all torn and everything, and then like there were rats scurrying around during the movie. We had like take our feet up. But anyway, that's just an aside. Illy Weimer was a very creative guy, and he had all these wonderful ideas about like superimposing footage from Elvis movies on our faces, and it is shot in places in Jersey City that no longer exist because Jersey City in the intervening decades has become incredibly gentrified, and they've built things everywhere. But in those days, there were just like these sort of like streets underneath or next to the train tracks where they were just deserted, and so the outdoor scenes are on that kind of place in Jersey City, and the interior scenes are at this strange building where we rehearsed for many years. It was an old factory building, and we used to rehearse in the basement, and the basement had all these weird places and spaces, and it was very spooky. And so we're running around like the dark hallways of that basement, and there was a pit in that basement. I don't know what it was for, maybe coal, or who knows what its original purpose was. But there's this scene where like a whole bunch of people are like in this pit, and they're waving their arms in the air, and that was that. And the women in the movie or in the video were the girlfriends and wives of the band members, plus one actress. But another thing is we got this Elvis mask. And that's our bass player at the time, John Williams, wearing the Elvis mask and running around and chasing me in the basement. Yeah. And we held on to that mask for a couple of years. And in Greenwich Village, they have this legendary Halloween parade. Right. And we went to the parade, and we brought the mask, and there was a float with like 12 people wearing the same Elvis mask. It was so funny. But we had a lot of fun making that video. I really like it. I love like all the little details, like the bust of Elvis, and the it's a lot of fun.
Yeah, I think it looks great. I mean, the camera work kind of reminds me pretty similar to the Bengals Manic Monday video a little bit.
Well, he was really creative. Then he's Austrian, and he moved back to Austria, I think, and had a nice long career doing theater there.
Nice. That 1987 album was a mature departure in terms of lyrical and musical growth. Did you guys feel that you needed to be going in that direction?
I think we were just getting older.
Yeah. I mean, it's a somewhat somber album, you know. I mean, but it still sounds great. Like, I'll Do Anything certainly has a Beatles-esque, you know, Rubber Soul / Revolver sound to it.
Well, thank you. Well, what I loved about that song was like the harmony and interweaving vocals.
Where did Don't Drop the Baby come from?
Oh, that's a great song. John wrote that song. And we were on tour, and he got a phone call, like a cryptic phone call, and then that's how he found out that his brother had a baby, and that was like the first niece, in our family. And then we went to visit, and so he got to hold her, and he wrote the song after that.
Yeah, it's pretty funny. Don't Drop the Baby. That's a funny title. Did you guys ever do American Bandstand or Solid Gold or any of those shows?
No.
Yeah, because I was
Too bad.
yeah, because I was looking on YouTube. I was like, wow, they looks like they never did TV. You know, no MTV concert or any of the talk shows or any of that.
We did something called America's Talking. I think it was an early show on MSNBC. That when that network was just starting out. But that was it.
Interesting. But
I don't think we have I don't think we have any video from that, which is probably a good thing.
Yeah.
We were probably so nervous and terrible.
Oh yeah, look at my hair. You never know. But yeah, I mean, you guys have always, gotten back together and recorded and toured. But at this point, are the Cucumbers pretty much done?
Oh, actually, we just put out a new release.
Oh, do tell.
Yeah. We have an album out called Old Shoes. It just came out on July 21st. And, well, we quieted down in the early 2000s. John and I have 2 children, and when in the 90s, although we kept making Cucumbers albums, I was doing music for kids with my friend Alice Janice, who has an amazing music career and story of her own too. And then I started collaborating with other people and did a couple of solo albums. And John has always written fiction. He's gone back and forth between music and fiction writing, so he was focusing more on his fiction. But we always played and did little things here and there. And then we most recently, before the pandemic, for several years, we were in a band called the Campfire Flies.
Oh, yeah.
And then during the pandemic, the Campfire Flies was a wonderful band, and there's 6 people in the band, and 5 out of the 6 people sang. Or no, maybe all 6 of us sang. But at any rate, you weren't supposed to be in a room singing with people. So it was so sad that we couldn't get together and rehearse. But that John and I had each other. And so throughout the pandemic, we were able to perform together as a duo. And we performed outside, weather permitting, or we did live stream type concerts. And we put together, and I've written lots of songs that I've never recorded, and so we had the time to go through and sort of refine, just because we played them over and over, versions of some of my favorite songs that I hadn't been able to record. And meanwhile, I'd been thinking, how am I going to record these songs someday? And the thought of putting a band together just for recording was still quite challenging. And our son, we have 2 sons, both incredible musicians. Our drummer son happened to be home once when we were practicing for a gig, and he was studying for an exam. And as a study break, he's like, can I, jam with you while you're rehearsing? And we're like, of course. And it sounded great. And then I realized, I can have Jamie playing drums. And we got our friend, who is a wonderful bass player, Rick Wagner, who to play bass. And so we recorded these songs. I wanted to document the sound that John and I had developed and evolved during the pandemic. And so there you have a new Cucumbers album. I'll have to send you one.
Oh, that would be fantastic. Yeah, it sounds like it'd be cool. Yeah, I know that the internet has never, is never complete. So like I didn't even know about that album, but I'm so happy to hear that there's a new Cucumbers album out. That's so awesome. I've seen YouTube videos of you and John doing acoustic jamming. Do you guys still go out and play at the coffee houses and stuff?
Yes, we do. It's nice and portable. It's so easy. um, and it's very easy to rehearse. We have a bunch of shows coming up, actually.
Oh yeah, like any you want to mention?
Let's see. Well, we're going to play live on WFMU radio
Nice.
a week from Monday afternoon, and then we're going to play in Hoboken at a big collaborative concert with a bunch of people doing country music songs. And then 2 weeks, is it from today? Today's Friday. Yes, 2 weeks from today, we're playing a whole set at a club in New Jersey, not far from where we live, called the Shillelagh House. And then we got a bunch more planned in the coming months. But that's what's coming up in the next couple weeks.
Nice. I'm sure COVID was a little rough that because everyone had to stay inside.
Oh yeah, thank God it's over. It's just like amazing to get out and go to shows and go to your play shows. It's so much fun.
Yeah.
But we're still getting used to it, right? Everything's a little different, and we're all a little bit older, so you're not jumping back into exactly what you did before.
Are there going to be Cucumber shows with this new album?
Oh, definitely. Yes. That, I think the one 2 weeks from tonight is the first one. And we'll probably do a more official sort of album release party, but I haven't pinned down the details yet.
Awesome. Well, I hope you guys come to California. I'd love to see you.
Oh, God, we would love to do that. So you're in the Bay Area?
Well, Modesto, yeah. I just moved back here. I'm born and raised in San Mateo, but I just moved to Modesto because I was living up in Redding for 6 years, and it wasn't good over there, so I came up here.
Yeah, I've never been there, so I don't know anything about it.
Yeah. I'm curious, Deena, is your belly button an innie or an outie?
Oh, it's an innie.
Love it. I have an innie as well, and I love belly buttons.
Me too. I actually thought one album cover would be really neat if we were all just like our midsections and our belly buttons, but that didn't happen.
Yeah.
Maybe an album cover for the future.
Oh yeah.
But they're not getting any prettier.
Oh, you can do some enhanced version of it. But you probably just want to stay pure. Deena, thank you so much for coming on today, and I'm so glad that you guys are still out there performing. And once again, I hope to see you guys perform live one day. And yes, if you want to send me that album, I'll send you my address.
Okie doke. Be glad to.
Awesome. You have yourself a great day and be safe out there.
You too. Thank you, and thanks so much for having me.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Well, there you have it. Deena Shoshkes. Ain't she a sweetheart? What a sweet, sweet lady. I am so glad that we could have this talk today, and I'm so glad that the Cucumbers are out there still jamming away. And that new album, yeah, wow. I can't believe the internet didn't even bring it up. That is so awesome. Hopefully you'll be put on the website so all of you can go, take a listen to it and stuff. Well, until next time, this is Tommy Throwback Kovac saying there's no shame in living in the past because the present sucks. Later, dudes.